And now that we are done talking about the UFC 305 main event, let's get into the rest of the card. We've got some big results to recap in the main card and on the prelims, and it starts with the co-main event of the evening. Kai France returned for his first time since last June and got a massive, massive victory that may just set him up for a flyweight championship fight. Kai France has ended his two-fight skid with losses to Amir Albazi last June in a razor-close split decision, and prior to that, a title fight with Brandon Moreno in the summer of 2022 where he got finished in the third round. He is back in a big way. He knocked out the 7th-ranked Steve Erceg, who just fought for the title in May. He did that 4 minutes and 4 seconds in to the very first round. This was a massive win for the 31-year-old New Zealander Kai France because now he's put this losing streak to bed, and all of a sudden he is right there for the taking in this flyweight division for a title shot. We've been talking about this flyweight division as of recently here on the channel. At UFC 304 in England, we saw Muhammad Mokaev beat Manel Kape, remain undefeated, should have been next in terms of a win streak in the flyweight championship race, but he has been released from the UFC. He is not getting re-signed. Therefore, he's not even in the rankings anymore. What did that mean for the flyweight title picture? Because paired with that, we have the number 1 ranked Brandon Royval, who's coming off of a loss to the champion Pantoja, going up against the number 5 ranked Tatsuro Taira, who's also undefeated, coming off of his first main event where he finished Alex Perez. I thought after that fight he had probably done enough to become a title contender, especially when you talk about Mokaev no longer being in the UFC. It felt that he definitely should have been next, but instead they paired Royval and Taira together for a fight later on this year, meaning Pantoja was left without an opponent, and that is why Pantoja has been left off of all of the UFC pay-per-views up until the end of the year. But now I think we have the fight for him. I believe that in December we will see Pantoja versus Kai France for the undisputed flyweight championship of the world. It is a fresh matchup for the champion Pantoja, who's had a couple rematches in the UFC. He's fought Brandon Moreno numerous times. He fought Brandon Royval numerous times. But now, him and KKF, a fresh matchup. Kai will be a top 5, probably even move into the top 3 after this victory come Tuesday. Obviously, Pantoja is one of the longest reigning champions in the organization right now. Huge win for Kai France. The only other man that is in discussions for a title shot is Amir Albazi, the man that beat Kai France last year, but he has not fought since then. And he called out Kai France after this fight, even though he just beat him last year. I don't think Amir Albazi is going to get that title shot. I don't think he's going to get the rematch with Kai France because the UFC will have bigger plans for KKF. Amir Albazi is an elite level talent in this flyweight division. Don't forget about him just because we haven't seen him fight in so long, but now he seems to be the odd man out in this flyweight situation. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the flyweight division. Let me know. Do you think this was a title-earning performance for Kai France? It was a huge knockout against someone who just fought for the belt. It's a fresh matchup for the champion Pantoja. Their timeline seemed to pair up for either November or December, being that this was a first-round finish. Kai didn't take a lot of damage. Pantoja last fought in May. I just think all of the stars are aligning for these two to clash for the next title shot. So let me know if you agree in the comments below. Next, we will talk about the featured bout of the evening where the number 11th ranked Dan Hooker, blonde hair, tattooed and all, is back, and he is now on a 3-fight win streak. He hadn't fought since July of 2023 when he got a decision victory over Jalen Turner, and now he gets a decision victory over the number 5 ranked Mateusz Gamrot. An absolutely massive victory for Daniel Hooker, the biggest of his UFC career, something that will catapult him in to the top 5, into legitimate title discussions when you pair it with the fact that he's fought the current lightweight king in Islam Makhachev before. I talked about this on the preview episode, but between June of 2020 and March of 2022, Dan Hooker had lost 4 out of 5 fights during that stretch, but now he's on a very big win streak, 2 victories against ranked opponents in this lightweight division. Dan Hooker is legitimately 1 win away from the title shot in this division. This fight earned the official fight of the night for UFC 305. It was an absolute barn burner, back and forth. Mateusz Gamrot looked very good on the feet early on. Pair that with his amazing takedowns and wrestling and grappling that we see through and through in all of his fights. Then Dan Hooker with a historic 80% takedown defense, historic in terms of his career and all of these fights that he's had, proved to do himself pretty well. He didn't eat too much damage when on the ground. He was able to get up, and as that fight went on, he was able to defend much better. In that second and third round, he poured on the pressure. He had a big knockdown against Gamrot at the end of the first round even. Round 3 was very, very close. This could have went either way. It was a split decision where Hooker got the nod. Had Gamrot won, I wouldn't have been surprised either. The fight was fantastic. Gamrot put to bed the narrative that he's a boring fighter. Let us not forget that in 2022, he had one of the highest level fights of the entire year with Arman Tsarukyan. He still has a very bright future ahead of him, at least I believe. And Dan Hooker, at 34 years old, right on the edge of those prime years, has primed himself for a potential title shot. And I saw this on MMA Twitter last night. I believe it was Dovey, or however you say his name. So full credit here to him for this idea, but he threw it in my head and I haven't been able to get it out of my brain since. It is the fight of the dyed hair blondes and tattooed fighters, Charles Oliveira, former lightweight champion, and Dan Hooker. These two have never had their paths crossed despite being multi fight veterans of the UFC dating back numerous years. This would be an absolute barn burner, a fan favorite fight if I've ever seen one. Make it a fight night 5-rounder. Make it a co-main event pay-per-view 5-rounder. Make it a featured bout on a pay-per-view. Whatever you want to do, that is the fight to make. We know that Arman is going to be next for Islam Makhachev, probably early on in 2025. Charles Oliveira is currently without an opponent. Now he has one. Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker, absolute banger and a title shot for the victor. It doesn't get any bigger and better than that. While I don't have a lot to say in terms of the action we saw in the cage, it is worth mentioning that the number 12 ranked Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik has beaten the number 10 ranked Tai Tuivasa via split decision. Oh my word. One of the most horrendous, awful scorecards of all time happened at UFC 305 because a judge, Howie Booth, if I'm not mistaken is his name, gave Tai Tuivasa a 30-27 scorecard. Oh my goodness. If you watch the fight, you know why I am reacting the way that I am. If you didn't watch the fight, I'm just telling you right now, Tai Tuivasa at best won 1 round of this fight, and I think that's even a stretch. He's now on a 5-fight losing streak. The last 4 are all via finish. This is a very, very tough pill to swallow for Tai Tuivasa, for his fans, and for the shoes. Hopefully, though, we don't see Howie Booth judging any high-level MMA fights in the near future until he can justify his reasoning behind this. We even saw him get removed from his placement in the co-main event fight with KKF and Steve Erceg following that egregious scorecard in this heavyweight top 12 bout. Thankfully, the right man still got the nod in Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He didn't get, screwed out of money, out of a win, out of a placement in the top 10 come Tuesday morning. So that's what matters at the end of the day. But my goodness, there were some really weird scorecards throughout this UFC 305 card. Time after time, month after month, there's at least one absolutely mind-boggling scorecard that comes through. Luckily, as of late, the right fighter has still been winning, but shoo-wee. And how about this for the main card opener? Carlos Prates is the real deal. He became the first man to ever finish Li Jingliang via knockout. He is now 3-0 in the UFC with 3 knockouts, all in 2024. He's a 2023 Dana White Contender Series alum. He's 20-6 with 18 finishes. 15 of those 18 are by knockout. He's 31 years old. He's right in his prime. He's long. He's rangy. He's precise. He's technical. He's powerful. He checks all of the boxes for an elite level striker in this division. I am absolutely stoked to see what could come next for Carlos Prates. At only 3-0, you would think maybe a one or two more before a ranking. But if you're finishing Li Jingliang via knockout, I think it's time to throw him in there. Imagine a fight with Michael Venom Page, two elite strikers that do it oh so differently. That's just something that's ringing the bell to me immediately off the page as I look at the back half of the top 15. Even a fight with someone as fun as Vicente Luque, assuming he doesn't get rebooked with Nick Diaz, put him with Jeff Neal, any of those three guys, I'm absolutely signing up to see Carlos Prates fight next. Casey O'Neill has bounced back in a big way. She ends her two-fight losing streak since returning from her ACL injury and gets a very convincing decision over the surging Luana Santos, who was 3-0 in the UFC and just got a finish a month ago in July. Casey will hold her spot in the top 15 of the women's flyweight division, and I look forward to seeing what could come next for King Casey. I've been a huge fan of her ever since she debuted in 2021 in the UFC. Literally fought 3 times that year and had 3 finishes. She is a very, very good fighter, and it seems that she's maybe turned the page and really started to make the proper adjustments and improvements to begin this next chapter for her career, as she is just still 26 years old and has a bright future ahead of her. I think when it's all said and done, she will be a future title contender in this women's flyweight division. I think someone in the top 15 is definitely next. No more unranked fighters. Tracy Cortez is coming off of a loss to Rose Namajunas. Those two haven't fought before. They've kind of came up together alongside one another with Aaron Blanchfield, Manon Fior, these young talents in this 125-pound weight class. Off the top of the page, I think we do Tracy Cortez and Casey O'Neill next. Jack Jenkins bounced back from his loss last September to Chepe Mariscal with a finish over Herbert Burns in the 3rd round. He's 13-3 with 9 finishes, 31 years old, right in his prime. He's 3-1 in the UFC so far. He's in this featherweight division. I like Jack Jenkins. He's very precise. He's technical with his striking. He's dangerous, slow plotting, has nasty leg kicks. This is a big-time finish over Herbert Burns, who has been prone to being finished in the past, but regardless, still big bounce back for Jack Jenkins, fighting all out of Australia. I think he's got some very fun fights left in the tank. He's a Contender Series alum from 2022. Let me know what you guys think about Jack Jenkins. What do you view him potential-wise 4 fights into his UFC career? And last but not least, Jesus Aguilar improved to 11-2 in his professional career. He's now on a 3-fight win streak after submitting the debuting Stewart Nicoll in the very first fight of the UFC 305 card. Now, he did miss weight, unfortunately, for this bout, which is a bit of a hindrance to the momentum he could have taken from this victory. But regardless, he's a Contender Series alum. His only loss is to Tatsuro Taira last February. Since then, he's won 3 straight fights, 2 of them via finish. He's in the flyweight division that doesn't have a ton of fighters, in terms of the outside of the top 15. I think maybe one more fight and then he gets a ranked opponent. Maybe even in his next fight against a ranked opponent. Just hopefully he gets that weight in check. Then we can talk some serious discussions for the 28-year-old. So give me all of your thoughts on UFC 305 in the comments below. What do you think is next for the big winners? What do you think is next for the losers? What were your favorite fights? What were your favorite moments, and everything in between? If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Every week I recap the most meaningful results from every card. I also break down and preview the biggest fights, talk about the storylines and what is at stake for them, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA and follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple. Every Friday and Monday, podcast episodes released there. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video.